So this peace lily used to be huge, but then I almost killed it, but it survived, which is great. And so today I'm going to be regaling you with that tale. Not so much regaling though, because it's quite a short story, but I'm also going to be talking about how I'm keeping my peace lily alive now, and hopefully you can gain a thing or two about how to keep your peace lily alive. Hello, my name is Balisa. Welcome to Plants and Things, where I talk about plants and things. So as I mentioned, this plant used to be huge, and I'm honestly not being dramatic. It used to be huge and beautiful, and I'll insert a picture with the plant in its former glory, but we're obviously also appreciating the plant as it is because it knocked on death's door and came back. So it used to be huge, but then I got a gnat infestation, and if you've read anything about plants, you know that number one remedy is to use hydrogen peroxide at 3% diluted by 12, and so, which is great, but I obviously have a lot of plants and there were like gnats everywhere, so I would have needed, I needed a lot of hydrogen peroxide. So I decided to go to a lab, I went to, not a lab, I went to a place that sells lab equipment and bought, it's not 50 liters, 50 liters is too big. I bought like a 2.5 liter at 50% concentrated. Yes, 50% concentrated hydrogen peroxide, and then decided to dilute it myself. And I mention this because maybe that's why the plant reacted badly, or maybe the plant was just like, why are you inserting hydrogen peroxide? But anyway, so I diluted that. And in the beginning, obviously I had a lot of plants to water with this hydrogen peroxide that's diluted. So in the beginning, I honestly went, did my calculations and diluted it appropriately with my baking equipment, and then was, watering, trying to get rid of these gnats. But then in between, I will admit that I just started pouring and pouring because I was tired. So I don't know whether it's the going to a lab to get hydrogen peroxide at 50% concentration, or it's the fact that at some point I really was just like pouring things together and being like, ooh, this is how much, and keeping it moving. But the plant started immediately drooping, and but peace lilies droop when they are dry. So the plant started drooping, and almost like this leaf is in perpetual droop. This is one of the last leaves that I didn't cut off from the former situation, but yes, I cut a lot of them off. So it was drooping like this, and I started freaking out because it was clearly well watered but still drooping. So then I decided to, what did I do? So I watered it with fertilizer to try undo what I had done. And so it could honestly be any of these things why this plant almost died. The roots rotted. I took it out of the soil. Finally, I took it out of the soil, took the soil off, washed the soil off, cut off the rotted roots. Basically, the plant had no roots left. And then I put it in water to root. It started rooting, and which was going great. The leaves were still droopy, I think. But then it was going great. I think I put fertilizer again. Basically, this is a story of how to do everything wrong. Can I just say that? Because I put fertilizer in the propagation water. I put fertilizer, which I like doing, and I don't think the plants enjoy it all that much, because this is not the first plant that then rotted, that was rooting well and then rotted because I added fertilizer. So clearly I'm not learning lessons. But anyway, it started rotting again. The roots rotted again. So I had to take it out again, cut the rotted roots off, put it back in water, let it root, and then immediately pot it up. And that's how we got to here. So even after I potted it up, because obviously you can still see this leaf and this leaf as well, they still were some droopy leaves, and some of the clusters didn't survive, honestly. But yeah, then I cut the leaves off, and it started getting its glow up, because look at these new leaves. Shame. It started improving. It's something else is happening, but you know what? It's doing much better and is no longer at death's door. So that's the story of how I almost killed this poor peace lily, and I'm hopeful for the day when she'll go back to her big, humongous former glory. But right now, she's doing really well. So how I'm keeping her alive now is obviously, first and foremost, no more hydrogen peroxide from the lab. I know none of you, no one else is probably dealing with this, but I cannot emphasize it enough. Do not use hydrogen peroxide from the lab. I also think when you've decided on a course of action, follow through. Don't follow through and see where it gets you. So that also could have been a problem. But anyway, back to onto the serious stuff of how to keep your peace lily alive, because I'm assuming the rest of y'all aren't dealing with these problems that I was dealing with. Firstly, as I always say, sunlight. That's how plants photosynthesize and make food. This plant loves bright light, I think. I know that it gets touted as a low light plant, so I don't keep mine in low light. I live in a bright apartment, so I don't keep it in direct bright light though. So even when it was huge and luscious and it was living in my bedroom, I had the lace drawn, so it was getting bright indirect light, which it seems to like. Now it's further away from the window, living in the kitchen, and it's doing sufficiently well for me to be like, it really likes bright light. Obviously, what people say is you can still have it in a darker spot and it'll do well. People say, I don't have any experience of doing that, so I cannot confirm or deny, but I would say bright indirect light is what this plant likes. Secondly, it likes to be moist. I found that it likes the soil to be moist, and if it gets dry, it's quite dramatic. I'm sure you've seen a video like TikTok or whatever of the plant being dry and like drooping, and then being watered and it going like back up. Obviously, this leaf is in perpetual droop, so I think if your leaves are perpetually drooping, that is a sign, like you've watered the plant and the leaves are still drooping, that is a sign that something is wrong with your plant. In terms of fertilizer, I use the same fertilizer for all my plants. I know people use different fertilizers, and so use my recommendation with caution. I use a balanced fertilizer for all my plants, and I try to water them once a month. Actually, I just remembered that I am lying. With the anthurium, the one anthurium plant that I have, I actually by cut I mean what is the word for as I was saying, with my anthurium, I cut the concentration by a quarter. Like I give it a quarter of what I give it a quarter of the recommended concentration of the fertilizer. So yeah, balanced fertilizer once a month. And this plant is honestly a very easy plant, like recommended for beginners. Just don't do the crazy things that you heard me talk about in this video, and I think you should be fine, because it is truly a beginner friendly plant. So I highly recommend, and one of my favorites, which is recuperating, and I'm thankful for that. That is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you next time. Bye.